This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 126th edition of the Frank and Stan chat. And for those of you watching on video, you will see that we have two guests who have been guests before. And I'm delighted to say we've got Jonny Mitchell with us. Hello, Jonny.
Hi there, Frank.
And Caroline Foster.
Hi, Frank. Hi, Stan.
Hi, Karen.
And how are you today, Stan?
A bit of a bad back, but a message that climbing on the roof at my age is probably, it's time to pay somebody to do roof repairs rather than do it yourself.
I noticed, my wife notices this on that sort of TV program about A&E, that either the people that are likely to come in are people of our age, Stan, who've fallen off ladders, or young people on motorcycles. There's a high proportion of those. So the messages don't go on that ladder, Stan. So anyway, it's been quite an eventful week in education and in government, and we're going to have hopefully an interesting chat about all of this. But before we do, should we go to Caroline first? Do you want to just explain who you are for those who haven't watched the videos before?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, Caroline Foster. I've worked with Frank and Jonny and Stan a little bit. Jonny, unfortunately, used to be the principal at the school I worked with. We worked in school together where Frank was CEO there. It's nice to see you again. It's great actually being in a room with Jonny where he can't boss me about anymore.
I have to say, Caroline, we did work just to sort of promote the quality of the work that you do, but a real focus on teaching and learning, and also around that stuff that your sort of forensic approach to attendance and all that sort of stuff was exemplary. So I learned a great deal from your approach. So and we were even asked by the DFE to talk about it to others.
Yeah, absolutely loved it. And now I'm doing a completely different role, which is brilliant. So
what are you doing there?
So, well, I've moved from teaching and learning pastoral now. So safeguarding lead, behaviour. Yeah, it's been really good, but seen both sides now. Good.
Okay, so Jonny, just tell us a little bit about you.
Well, she just said both sides now, which is nearly my name, isn't it? Jonny Mitchell, but Jonny Mitchell. But I'm obviously, I was principal at Co-op. I'm not sure, Caroline. Unfortunately, Jonny was my principal. I'm not sure if that was a backhanded dig or. I was Caroline's principal for 5 years, and then I moved on mid-pandemic to work in the Trinity Academy Trust. So I'm now principal of a school in Barnsley, Netherwood Academy, which is very much on a journey. We were Ofsteded a little over 12 months ago and got RI across the piece, which was really pleasing. But we're definitely heading towards good now. And I'm actually, I can say I'm enjoying life at the moment. It's really nice. And do, hanker after the co-op days sometimes. Fond memories when you spent five years in a school, which I think both Cameron and I grew to love. But we've both moved on now, as happens. Yeah. I'll be retiring in a couple of years, I hope. So.
Me too.
But also, I mean, that journey was a significant one. But I mean, that the last Ofsted you both had there, I think, judged leadership to be effective, and I think it just sort of goes the scale of the challenge for some communities is significant, But anyway, okay, well, it's great to have you back, and just for the record, this is the day after the Conservative Chancellor has managed to sort of offer an autumn statement which seems to offer some people some money in the first 2 years and then raids everybody's bank accounts in the medium term. So that's really, and actually a big statement that there's been some increased funding, but for schools, but it seems to take funding back to 2010 levels. So in effect, we've had a freeze in funding for nearly 12 years, so 12, 13 years. So, I mean, how that's been spun as a good news story, I'm really struggling with that. But anyway, I know that I don't want to get you two at the bottom of the screen drawn into a political discussion because you're still employed, and we can speak more openly. So anyway, Stan.
I think just on that, Frank, I think why people sort of going, oh, well, that's not so bad, is because we've been built up for the last fortnight of how bad it's going to be, that people have just taken that, well, it's not as bad as it might have been, so it must be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the detail now will drop out over the next few weeks, won't it? When people look at the small print and say, oh, look at that. That means this. So you need to wait a while to see what the impact will be. What's caught my eye this week?
What caught your eye?
Is bullying amongst staff. Now, there will be an inquiry, so we don't know whether there has been any bullying or not in the civil servants by ministers, but the fact that the ministers have been, the civil servants have been given additional support and counselling, and I love this phrase, a route out, should they want to take it, tells me that there's something going on that they're not in control of. And I think of the times I've had to deal with staff who couldn't get on, or staff who couldn't deal with people without sort of going for the authority line rather than the relationship line. And there are ways to deal with it, but I don't think you deal with it by saying there has to be somebody else in the room every time you two meet. I don't know what anybody else's experiences of that, but I've had to, in one situation I was in, I had a member of staff who the younger staff were frightened of. She was very authoritarian, but I also knew she was really good at systems. So all I did was juggle it so she had no line management responsibilities, but ran the systems. And everybody was sort of, right, that's okay. I don't like her, but she's no longer line managing me, so it's okay. And there are ways around it, I think.
I didn't realise it at the time, but when I was promoted in Ofsted to a fairly senior position, I had a wonderful director who managed me, and then that changed, and I don't want to reveal the name because I didn't actually make a complaint at the time, but I do still feel the pain of that that relationship that I had with that manager. It really completely knocked my confidence, and also there was open humiliation. I mean, that was the thing. It wasn't just done in private, in an office. That's the worst. In a way, it shouldn't happen at all. But when you're humiliated in front of senior staff who think you're quite good, but then they don't think that because somebody thinks you're not very good who's quite senior, and they want to get up the that greasy pole as well. You really do find out at that point who your friends are. So I having experienced it personally, and it was quite brutal. I wish I'd come out with that and addressed it at the time, but I was still ambitious, so I just thought this is what happens, when you get to this level.
The link to bullying that they've put is that, just as you said, Frank, this is demeaning behaviour, taking people down, but it on a systematic and frequent basis. So it becomes bullying, not because if you take one incident and say, well, he tore me off a strip in front of others, but if that's every time, and every time you go into the office, that's what you're expecting, then it does fall into bullying.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, take a school environment. You've got two different sort of sets of clientele, haven't you, in a school?
Yeah.
You've got the kids and you've got the staff, and like it's challenging for the kids sometimes to say that they've been bullied, whether they've been physically bullied, mentally abused, or what have you. It's difficult for them to speak out, and they don't necessarily know where to latch on. But with staff, in an environment where everybody knows everybody's business, because in schools, it's pretty famous that everybody knows everybody's business, even if you try and keep it secret. Sometimes
don't tell anybody this.
Don't tell anybody this, but I'm standing in the middle of the staff room with a megaphone. I've probably been guilty of it myself on a couple of occasions, but you sort of do it by default. But actually, some staff are afraid to speak out, not necessarily because of the consequences, especially if they're speaking out about someone who's superior in the rankings, as it were, or in the hierarchy. But they're concerned that it will finish their career, because bullies will react to claims about bullying by bullying more. Certainly adults, and certainly those in lofty positions. but also they want to make sure that the repercussions on other colleagues are not felt as well. And I've been in situations, you know, I've not been personally involved, but I've had to handle situations where someone in relatively high office has clearly been bullying someone and systematically picking them out. And been through all this, yeah, let's have a mediator in the room every time. That can't happen. It's just not practical. But actually, I think schools are getting better because of their systems and processes about allowing staff to go down the grievance route and being able to resolve it as quickly as possible. But actually, I think it's really challenging in schools, and I can only speak from schools' experience. Caroline will have had to handle situations like that with staff as well. I don't know. Are you coming in there, Caroline? Or?
That's a lead in for you, Caroline.
Yeah, it's really, really tricky, isn't it? But I get, like you say, like Jonny says, it's very, very difficult to speak out. You know, it's in those situations because there's only one route in some cases that it's going to go. However, all you can do is learn from it and make sure that going forward as a leader that you don't behave like that and you don't tolerate it where you are. That's all you can do, really, isn't it?
Well, I understand.
And challenge it when you see it. And it's a great topic because it is anti-bullying week. So
yeah,
I don't need to do that.
You think it's not joined up, and I think that what summed it up for me was that the civil servants who had concerns when the minister was going to come back were offered respite or a route out, which seems to me that you're dealing with it from the wrong way around.
Mm.
You're not dealing with the problem. You're dealing with those that are complaining about the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe seeing that those complaining about the problem are the problem because of the arrogance of the system, shall we say?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there is, though, a concern, isn't there, if there is a pattern? You know, I mean, I'm aware of. I'm not asking you at the bottom of the screen to comment on this, but you know, we have got instances where, you know, the Home Secretary, the former Home Secretary, you know, it was judged that she had bullied, but the Prime Minister decided that he was going to override that, you know, and in a way, if you're a senior civil servant working in that environment, you think, well, there is no protection anymore.
No.
You know,
well, there's going to be an inquiry that the Prime Minister is going to select someone to do this inquiry. But Number 10 have already said he's under no obligation to take the advice that the inquiry give. It'll be his decision at the end of the day. Yeah.
That's a pretty good.
Sorry, there's absolutely no doubt. Just transferring it back into a school setting and make it very personal to me. If I was found, if there was significant evidence that I was singling someone out, bullying them, treating them harshly, I get my marching orders, and I probably won't get any severance. So, you know, without commenting on the political situation, there's some level of parity and equity in the system.
Yeah, that's what we actually, for those who are watching for, you know, first time or whatever, that's what we try to do. Johnny's woven it back into a school setting, so we try and avoid making it too political, but use it as an example of how it relates to schools. So, Jonny, do you want to? What's caught your eye this week?
Yeah, I'll lighten the mood because it's a positive story, obviously, and it's been ongoing for a while. But rugby league's one of my great passions, as you're probably aware. Being a good old northern boy from Dewsbury, and obviously followed this story of Rob Burrows' deterioration as a result of motor neuron disease. And I just wanted to flag up and champion Sir Kevin Sinfield, as he should be, for the gargantuan efforts that he's continually pounding the streets, doing these ultra marathons. I mean,
I just cannot work out how he's doing this.
It's superhuman, Frank, and it's obviously relatively close to home. You know, Caroline and I both have a mutual ex-colleague whose mum passed away really, really quite quickly from start to finish through MND, and it makes it all the more inspiring when you see people that could potentially have better things to do with their time, you know, devoting vast portions of their life to supporting colleagues. And having taught at the school where Rob Burrows was as a student, not at the same time, a couple of years before I was there, you know, I know that community talk about Rob with great admiration and great pride. And I just wanted to flag it up. And obviously it's Children in Need Week, and all the charitable things that are going on at the minute. I just think it's really, really important that even in a time of financial crisis, people are putting their hands in their pockets to support these amazing people.
Yeah, we did it because I'm a fellow rugby league fan, although we may have different allegiances.
Definitely.
But in the Leeds versus Salford game at Salford, we did the bucket for MND and for Rob Burrow. But mainly because of Rob Burrow, because of the disease, but also because my brother-in-law's one of his best friends has just recently died, but he's had it for a long time, and to see that deterioration it's so sad, because there's somebody still in that body that's not working.
Yeah,
it's really difficult. And as you say, Johnny, I think it's kind of slipped off the attention of everybody. We did try to get there were sort of ulterior motives to it, but we did try to get something for the cup final when there was no crowd there. So my brother-in-law and his friends wanted to put on something for M&D there at Wembley. It was so he could actually watch the game, to be honest. but that was a plan. But yeah, it's a very, very awful disease, awful illness, and what it does is unforgivable almost to really good people.
Is there a lot of children in need going on in your two schools then this week?
We're quite limited. It's all about it's all about personal development. It's all making sure the kids get a well-rounded education. But we're at such a low starting point that it's been about making sure that we're scholarly in the classroom and kids are getting it right, and they are. I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of how the kids have responded over the last 18 months or so. You know, I'll say post-pandemic. Are we post-pandemic? Not even sure if we're post-pandemic. Don't know when it started. Don't know when it'll finish. Does it even exist anymore? Don't know. But we do little things, and we've had various rewards. And but you know, I'm not a fan. Caroline will know I'm not a fan of non-uniform days. I just don't. Because behaviour just goes wah like that. And the kids get way overexcited, and especially on a Friday when it's bad anyway. So not a great deal, but bake sales.
Well, that might be a room 101.
No, I put it in there.
On uniform days, going to room 101. I mean, old so and so. Anyway, are you doing stuff at your school as well then for children in need?
Oh, we've had an amazing week. I have to do a shout out to my anti-bullying ambassadors who have just planned this whole week. Lots of stuff going on. We've tried to flip it, so we've done bits around anti-bullying. Students are really engaged, but we've flipped it to random acts of kindness. So there's been lots of things going on around school, and the challenge to do random acts of kindness. But yeah, shout out to my anti-bullying ambassadors that are just amazing. The work that they've done this week. There's been something every day. I can't keep up with.
So apart from that, what's caught your eye this week?
I'm going to mention the C word, unfortunately. I'm talking about Christmas. The John Lewis advert, it's amazing. And it's just so brilliant. Like, I'm not a massive Christmas fan, but I saw that advert and I am so pleased that they've sort of put the spotlight on children in care, because it is, you know, it's only going to go one way, this, isn't it? And, you know, it's just so great that they've done that, but also, you know, the work that's going on in schools to support these students. I found myself this year as first time as designated teacher, so it really hit home for me. But it hit home the sort of scale of the challenge. As I say, it's only going to go one way. We're even thinking about potentially making it a full-time role.
Really?
Advertising that, because it is a job, and it's like that for many colleagues in other schools in terms of the challenge we face. I don't know, Johnny, I don't know what you're...
Yeah, I mean, I must confess, I haven't seen the John Lewis advert. You know, I don't watch a lot of TV.
Have you not? Oh,
in fact, Stan, would you like to sing it? Would you like to sing it? Because I'm guessing there's a song attached.
No, it's the backing track is. I'm not
I'm just not seeing it this year at all.
What's that band called? Blink something or other.
Blink 182.
Yeah.
All the small things. Is that what it is? All the small things.
Yeah.
Get your guitar out. Let's have a go. Come on.
Carry on.
Yeah.
But actually, it's done in a very mellow way, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
actually, you have to listen quite carefully to it to get it, but it's a perfect piece of music to back up the message. And Johnny, the message doesn't become very clear until virtually the final 10 seconds of the advert.
Caroline spoilt it now by talking about looked after children.
Yeah, no spoiler alert on there.
Why do you think, Caroline, it's struck a chord with you?
I think it's just because of me taking on that role this year, and just because the level of, I don't know, the level of things that are coming into schools at the moment in terms of these, and actually the level of things that are getting thrown back at us. You know, and I'm sure however many years ago these children would not still be with their parents, because it's such an enormous challenge at the moment, and the lack of people to take on these roles to foster is, you know, people are struggling.
Yeah, I know that in Blackpool there's we've got a director of children's services who's been in post for about 18 months, but she's got a social care background. But basically, she you know, schools are the hub of social care, aren't they? You know, I mean, at the end of the day, and what she's trying to do is to just embrace that more fully, and to sort of ensure that schools are not just those that pass things on or manage stuff, you know, that actually they're the center of it, you know. So the challenge then is to make sure that the resources follow them, you know, and actually the problem is, isn't it, that resources don't sit in one place. The council have some of the resources, the health have some of the resources, police have some of them, you know. So it's a big challenge trying to get that sort of, well, a reformed children's services to address those particular needs around carers and those in care. Because I think for me, I did some training with Blackpool about being an adult that could actually care for a child when they come out of care. So that in effect, it was a lifelong relationship that you'd have with that person. Not that you'd, you know, you invite them around, well, you might invite them around for Christmas dinner or whatever, but it was more about just trying to make sure they just didn't fall through the various gaps when they come out of care.
Yeah. I mean,
I think the problem is often, though, that the solution that people come up with is to get everybody together for a meeting once a month. and you know, we've all sat through those, and they make no difference, because there's nobody actually championing what's going on. And you don't need all those people. You just need access to the funds, to the support networks, and one adult. I think last week we were told I think, was it in where they sort of assimilated schools into social care? Was it in Wirral that?
Oh yes, it was. Yeah,
and made a big difference with the Shine organisations.
It was
sponsoring some of it.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the issues that schools are facing. I can't speak for every school, but I'm guessing with the crippling cuts in funding and the lack of availability of key personnel. You know, one of the things that I'm finding, and I know that many colleagues in my trust and my local authority area are finding, is the availability of, you know, educational psychologists. You know, even if you're just raising an early help assessment to try and get support for a family. It's not talking about children in care, it's talking about families generally. Even to get through to an early help, and then the early help comes through and recommends this, and this, and then you look at the suite of things that you need, and there are 8 things that are key to this family getting support, and only one of them or 2 of them out of that 8 are actually available in your local area, or if they are available, they're booked up until 2028. You know, when the tax thresholds are going to change for the next time.
It's funny.
It's very frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating, and I can only imagine, you know, the families that need these services and these support mechanisms the most are the ones that are going to miss out on them, because they've been prioritized in the wrong areas sometimes.
Yeah,
it's funny. We all know. Well, I think 3 of us know a guy called Alan Kinson.
Yeah,
and Alan is going to be a guest on Frankenstein Chat next year. And Alan had an episode happen in his family that required him to seek mental health support. for a family member, and he was shocked at how difficult that was. And it was resolved, but it was resolved because he had a car, he had a bit of money, he had the wherewithal, he had some of the connections, and actually some of the families that need it most are the least well equipped to do all of that legwork. You know, they're not well connected, they don't have those facilities. And in a way that leads into point for me was this week was just thinking about, I noticed that 2/3 of local authorities that have been inspected by Ofsted for their SEND provision were judged to be less than good this year. You know, which is a really, when you think about that, you know, if we are a truly inclusive society and we are actually about trying to ensure that everybody is treated fairly, to have services that are under so much strain that some of the most vulnerable children are simply not being well served by local authorities. You know, I mean, there was no news about that in the budget yesterday. You know, and in a way, I've made a big point recently about why we're inspecting schools so regularly when we've got significant failings in the services that are meant to be supporting schools.
Yeah.
You know, what is the attraction to inspecting a school when actually the problem lies elsewhere, locally, but elsewhere? You know, why are we not putting more resources into those services, you know, to ensure that they are available, you know, for schools when they need them?
I know it's something you've said for a long time, and I've agreed with you quite often over it, and that's inspecting an area for its provision for children.
Yeah.
And take into account social, medical, education, and look at what it's like for a child to live in that, you know, area. It could be a district, it could be a small village, but it's to identify what it's like and then put some resources in to make it better, not just tell people it's not very good.
Yes, yeah.
That's the other thing that happens.
But they used to do area-wide inspections, and they died a death, you know, because I suppose in a sense, I can say this, but the move Gove and Cummings into the Department for what was Children and Families into the Department for Education said it all, really. You know, and it just wasn't, they just didn't want to get involved in any of this, what they view to be a bit sort of softer stuff. It's all down to schools. And actually that's created, I think, in some heads and some trusts, sort of hero leaders, you know, whose view is that, well, actually, I can do it. Well, yeah, you might be able to do it, but actually it's no good you just doing it. You need everybody else in the town doing it, you know. And why is it that you're doing it and others are struggling? Well, what is it? Is there something going on here?
There was a period around the initial building schools for the future, so quite a number of years ago now, obviously, when I think probably 3 schools ago for me, when everything was being talked around like we're building these huge schools, learning centres, centres of excellence, and making them one-stop shops, and you know, having the hairdresser on site and having a nail bar and a juice bar and things like that, but also having, you know, GP's practice, etc., etc., etc. It didn't really take off. I think it happened in a couple of the bigger schools, but obviously then that did create hero leaders, as you say, rather than servant leaders, and I think it's good that didn't, you know, transpire in the end. However, I think if the central government and local government got their funding streams right and allocated the money right, they could go to schools in a more targeted way, so that some of these things could be taken on by, let's be honest, local authority services which are crippled by chronic understaffing. You know, I don't think any local authority or any service or any school or any hospital ever wants to get things wrong. They just do not have the people to be able to, and they couldn't pay the people if they had them anyway, but they don't have the people to be able to do that. So actually, if they do target it towards schools or groups of schools, or guess what, trusts that have risen exponentially over the last 10 years, then maybe actually there is a way that there can be economies of scale that provide better services, especially around things like mental health and physical health, and around special educational needs, because the number of students with SEND now is rising massively, and many of those are social, emotional, and mental health, SEMH, and they're the most difficult, because a diagnosis of SEMH could be an absolute panoply of issues which all conspire in a perfect storm, Whereas if you've got a condition, you know, if you've got a diagnosed medical or mental condition, then that you can target that more easily. But SEMH is such a wide thing, and there are more and more EHCPs now being issued, when they are issued, if they pass muster, for SEMH than for most other conditions.
Right.
And that's post-pandemic as well.
Yeah.
Going back to that you said about the schools, I was a great champion, I still am, of what Sure Start, the idea of Sure Start, which was obviously to bring those services together at an age where the child is less than 3 and be able to support the family and the parents. And again, the same people who destroyed the area, well, that moved from families to simply education, destroyed Sure Start as well.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking for over half an hour. So yeah, I know, it just goes amazingly quickly. I mean, we have this new slot since you were last on of Room 101. When we got to the 101st edition, we had 2 eminent researchers, 2 professors, I think, on the call, and they suggested that we create this this slot. So, have you got something to put in Room 101, Jonny?
Yeah, Snickers.
Oh yes, that has my full support.
Snickers, they're ungodly. The texture. I mean, I had a Snickers once and I nearly heaved. And there are certain things just bring me out in a rush. I mean, give me a Bounty any day. Everybody hates Bounties.
I don't like Bounties.
No, see, I don't even like coconut, but I like Bounties. But Snickers have to go in Room 101. There are lots and lots of ills in the world, lots and lots of heinous things going on in the world, but none more so than Snickers. So Room 101 for Snickers, please.
I thought you said stickers because I was
Snickers marathon. The marathon, Satan, the marathon. Okay.
Have you had a chance to think about what might go in Room 101, Caroline?
I'd love to put Jonny in there, but I'm going to go with your suggestion of non-uniform days. I would totally agree with that. I hate them. So they're going in there, staying forever.
I don't know what it is, though, is it? That the behaviour just dips. I mean, even in the school, it's many years ago now, but even the sort of, I had a nice middle-class primary school. Oh, my goodness me. Non-uniform days were horrendous.
And it's not just the students, it's the staff too.
It's the staff as well.
They forget duties just because it's a non-uniform, things like that.
Is it the same when it's odd sock day? Is that does the behaviour hold up on an odd sock day, I suppose?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you see, it does. I didn't even realise it was my RD that said, "Have you got odd socks on today?" When we were on the Teams call, and went, "No, I haven't actually." But I didn't even realise it was odd socks day. But it's interesting that instead of doing non-uniform days now, a lot of schools go to the wear something red or pink or blue. Yeah. And I think, you know, you tell them that you can't have an extreme hairstyle, you can't come in a wig, which is unfortunate for me. But you know, you maybe have a little pink pocket square coming out of your jacket, or a pink sock, or a pink ribbon, or something like that. And I think they're equally as effective. Look, at the end of the day, non-uniform days are there just to, because everybody pays a quid or a couple of quid or 50p or whatever. And in a school of our size, you can top 1,000 quid. And I think there are equally good ways of getting the whole school involved and engaged in charity fundraising without them coming in the ridiculous clothing that some students and some staff turn up to school.
Right.
And attendance always goes down on that day because your most vulnerable kids don't know what to wear, so they stay at home.
Yeah. I mean, when you make a big play about uniform, then having a day when you don't, it seems to be an odd decision, really.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So if that's going, so there's no more non-uniform days on a wet and windy Friday. That will be brilliant. Those are the favourite ones.
Okay, well, I think Jonny may. Oh, he's back. Oh, he's got one.
Is that a sacrificial lamb?
It's a sack. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm putting it in Room 101, right? But I'm going to eat it just to say goodbye. I really.
Can I just say, the 126 editions never had anybody eat anything on one of these, so here we go.
It's the last Snickers that exist in the world. I'm getting rid of them for good now. I really can't wait.
All right. Well, thank you both for giving us just over half an hour of your time today. I really appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back again in 2023 if we're still carrying on. We've got guests lined up to Easter, but they still keep rolling along, and it's amazing. So thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thanks,
And
Bill.
Stan, thanks a lot. And it's just you and me next week. So for those who
Those
are
viewing figures will plummet.
will plummet, yeah, they go through the roof when we get guests. When it's just us two, nobody watches. But just to push out there, if there is if there are questions that you'd like us to consider, those of you who are watching or listening, if you want to just is it DM me or just send an email to Frankenstein Chat. There's a way of doing that on YouTube or whatever. So if you want to just send a message through, then we'll consider those for a chat next week. So thank you very much for your time, folks, and enjoy the rest of the day, and see you soon.
Thank you. See ya.
Thanks.